everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about my absolute favorite book of the summer, which I think is also going to be the perfect book to segue into fall, and that is A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting by Sophie Irwin. So if you are like me, you are in love with Bridgerton and anything Regency romance. Give me all of London society, all of like marriage, market, like balls, and getting dressed up, wearing the gloves, putting on the pearls, and like finding yourself a husband. So I love any book that is of that storyline. I absolutely love it. This was more like a romantic comedy, so it's set in Regency era London, like high society, and we're at the peak of like the London season where people are out and they're doing like the balls and the walks at Hyde Park and all of that. And we have Kitty Talbot, who is our main heroine in this book. I'm going to be doing a quick synopsis of the story along with what people have been saying on Goodreads, and then I will give my own personal review, and then I will get into a few spoilers that I just wanted to mention in here. So if you guys have read it, or if you don't really care and you're interested in hearing some of the stuff that happens in the book and you don't really care about spoilers, then you can continue watching, but I will leave a mark and let you guys know when that happens. So this is the debut novel by Sophie Irwin, and I picked up this book at Barnes & Noble in the new and like noteworthy section of hardcovers, and I saw this cover and I absolutely thought it was stunning. It's probably the prettiest book I've picked up so far this year, and that's saying a lot because there was like really good covers of books. Like we have Babel, we have the Atlas 6. There was just really pretty book covers this year, and I think this took the cake for me. I love the color blue on here. I love the peacock design and the little characters. Like here's a little girl swinging, and I just, yeah, very pretty. And there's an excerpt here when you start the book from Pride and Prejudice that I tabbed, and it says, "Without thinking highly either of men or of matrimony, marriage has always been her object. It was the only honorable provision for a well-educated young woman of small fortune, and however uncertain of given happiness, must be their pleasantest preservative from want." Which to me basically means that no woman really has a choice or cares too much about getting ready for marriage. It's just something that they're taught to do. It's the only way that they can move up in the world is to marry rich and marry a wealthy man or land-owning gentleman. And unfortunately, that's the case for women back then. That's like not surprising. Jane Austen really talks about that in Pride and Prejudice. That's like the main reason for Mrs. Bennet to be so like gung-ho about her daughters finding a husband and sending them all off, especially because she has 5 daughters and none of them can really move up or own any land or own their estate. They have to marry. And essentially that's what happens here in A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting. We have Kitty again, who is our heroine, and she is the eldest daughter of her sisters. I believe there's like 5 sisters. Her parents are recently deceased and she's been jilted. So her beau, I guess I should say, that lives in the town that she's from, basically leaves her for a richer woman because she doesn't have a penny to her name. Their estate is about to go bankrupt and get sold because she's under so much debt that her father has collected over the years, and she has no choice but to marry rich, or else her and her sisters are going to be like destitute, having to find jobs, having to be like a governess. Like, God forbid you have to have a job. Seriously, if I could just like not work, like, okay, I know there was a lot wrong with Regency era and women being, you know, from that time, but seriously, that would be nice. Not having to work. Anyway, so yeah, so she goes and takes off with one of her younger sisters, Cecily, I think that's how you pronounce it, and they head off to London to one of her mom's friends, and they are going to find themselves, or they're going to help find Kitty a rich husband to save them and use his fortune to pay off all of her debts. And that's basically the premise of the story. She is very, she's a headstrong woman, she's independent, and she is self-sacrificing. That's what I got from this, was that she is thinking so much so about her sisters and making sure they don't have to like go into like these group homes or go to like be spread out and not be together anymore because they don't have money to live in their family home. She's gonna do whatever she has to do to find a husband, whether she loves him or not. She doesn't even care if they're necessarily a good person. She just needs them to propose. And what's interesting about this book is that unlike other stuff that we've read in the past, from like period pieces or like learning about London, the London season, is she's not from this place at all. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know how to dress, how to act amongst all of these high rich people. So she is taught as best as she can by her Aunt Dorothy. Essentially, she finds somebody who is like the son of an earl or the younger brother of an earl, and she's like, I'm gonna get him. He's making like tons of money. He's gonna help me, or I can use his fortune to help my family, and I can make him fall in love with me very quickly. The eldest brother, essentially, who is the earl, sees what's going on and is like, I have my eyes on her. She is a gold digger. Well, he doesn't say that, but that's pretty much what it is. And I'm going to stop her in her tracks. And so it goes from there. They kind of make a deal to like, if you don't go after my younger brother and like try and ruin my family, I'm going to help you find a match. Just leave my family alone. And so it goes from there. It's kind of like an enemies to lovers, Bridgerton, Princess Diaries, Pride and Prejudice like mashup, and I loved it. It was a romantic comedy that should be adapted into a movie because it was just, to me, it was so funny, so witty, very charming. There's no spice, I will say. There's no spice in this book, but there's like that angst, that slow burn that you get from like a Jane Austen novel where, you know, you get the side glances and the looks from across the room and the little touches from her glove and things like that. They're just like, so I really, really loved when that happens in books. I don't really care too much for a lot of spice because I think you just get so much more room for the imagination in books like this. So obviously, you can have your opinion on if you prefer more spice or not in romance books, but I just really enjoyed it for what it was. It was witty, it was funny, it was a page turner. I read this in a day, and I think it's very enjoyable, lighthearted, and anyone can get into it and just read through this very quickly and enjoy it. Some of the things that people have been saying on Goodreads. So we have a 3-star rating from Sarah, who's basically called this book a YA Bridgerton, but she would have ranked it more if there was like more spice. That would have made it more interesting, which again, like I said, I don't necessarily agree with this. I think it's fine as its own, like just being its own type of romance. It's a different kind of romance that you're going to get from Regency period pieces. Think Sanditon, if you guys have seen Sanditon on PBS. It's just really like, again, you just get the little touches here and there of romance and slow burn, and I think that that makes up for it in a way. I don't know, but I can see how people would think that. Then we have Lauren, who gave this a 5-star review, which, by the way, I also gave this a 5-star review. She said it was an absolute delight. If you like Jane Austen or Georgette Heyer, you'll really like this. It's a sweet romance with charming characters, and this, if you like any of that stuff, then this is basically for you, which again, I 100% agree with. And the people that I've seen on Goodreads that left it as a 1-star review, they just thought the characterization of Kitty and her sister were flat. There wasn't a lot of character development, and it was basically just plot, no character, nothing character driven, which I would have to disagree. I think it just depends on how you look at it. Because it's like a rom-com, it's not supposed to, I don't think it's supposed to be very character driven. It's not supposed to be that deep. It's just supposed to be like kind of light and airy. I think there is some character development though in the growth of Kitty and understanding what's really important, what's most important, finding love or doing your duty to your family and marrying someone just to take care of your younger sisters and things like that. And then we have other characters too. We have Lord Radcliffe, who's the Earl. We have Aunt Dorothy, who takes care of Kitty and Cecily while they are in London for the season. We have Archie, who's the younger brother. We have a lot of different moving parts here. So, and again, it's light and airy, but there is a little bit of serious moments with each of these characters where something happens and they learn along the way about their own character and how they've made mistakes, how they can improve. So it's not that deep, but it has little, I would say little flecks of growth happening at the end. So that's just my take on it and the characters themselves, but the writing was great. You don't have to be, a Jane Austen fan to read this book. You won't get confused or like overwhelmed by the writing style because it's not very dense. So it's a quick read. Like I said, I read this in a day. I gave this book a 5 stars. There's a few things in here that I really wanted to highlight to you guys if you're interested. If this is the part where I'm going to kind of talk about some spoilers and things that I really, really liked in the book. So if you don't want to know any spoilers, if you just want to end the video here, please feel free to do so. Just give it a thumbs up if you haven't yet, or subscribe to my channel. Now we're going to take more of a deep dive into the book. Probably one of my favorite quotes in the book is when Kitty initially meets Lord Radcliffe, who is the eldest brother of Archie, and he is trying to stop her from marrying Archie. He's like, I already know my brother thinks he's in love with you, but I can see through this facade and I know what you're trying to do and it's not going to work. And he's kind of making her feel really bad about the fact that she's trying to marry for money when he doesn't have to worry about that. And she says, only the rich have the luxury of honor, and only men have the privilege of seeking their fortune on their own. I have 4 sisters who depend on me, and the professions open to women such as I, governess, seamstress perhaps, will not keep even half of them fed and clothed. What else am I to do but seek a rich husband? And then he calls her heartless. And I just thought that quote was really good because it really just sums up the entirety of this book. She has no choice whether he wants to judge her for it or not, and whether the reader wants to judge her for this and hate her character. She's doing what she thinks is best to protect her family because really there is no other option. And she's sacrificing her own happiness to take care of her younger sisters. So I can see that, is she being kind of a gold digger? Probably. Because she's taking the happiness of someone else, of a man who could instead fall in love with somebody else, instead of faking her love in order to, get married and get his fortune. But I also see where she's coming from and that her options are just really limited. And so I like that banter. I like her trying to explain to him where she's coming from, and it kind of humbles him. We start to see him begin to doubt his own beliefs and what he grew up knowing and learning from being in London society and around these people that kind of put their noses down on anyone that isn't in their inner circle, which I think actually is what makes me find him as my favorite character. I think he was just really great. And the part in the book that made me just think this was a complete Princess Diaries moment is when she asks him so she goes to his house several times and asks him questions, Lord Radcliffe, for advice on how to be like a proper socialite and get the attention of these men and get them to court her and all of that. And he's teaching her how to curtsy properly depending on their rank and who she meets. And so it just reminded me of that scene in the Princess Diaries when they are teaching Mia how to talk and act and walk like a princess, and she sits on the chair and just tries to put her ankles over one another, and then she just falls over. I found that so funny, and it just really reminded me of that. So Again, very lighthearted, very comedic, very witty and sarcastic. I just love that. I love that type of humor. Yeah, there's so many moments in this book that just made me smile and made me feel like I was reading Pride and Prejudice again, which again, it's not really a spin-off, but there's little moments where Lord Radcliffe, who's like that grumpy guy, kind of like Mr. Darcy, is trying to convince himself that he doesn't have feelings for Kitty and doesn't realize it until the end of the book, which is very similar to Mr. Darcy in a way. So I found his character to just be so funny, and I love their back and forth. Like, he gets annoyed at her and she's so stubborn. They have just great banter, and she realizes that she brings that out of him, whereas whenever he talks to anybody else, he's very closed off and doesn't really want to speak to anybody. But when he's with her, he can like be his complete self, even if that's being, you know, kind of grumpy. He's more open and talkative, and he starts to realize it too at the end, which I just found so cute. I love it. I love the little grumpy sunshine trope we get in there too. So again, there's tropes in here for everybody, I think. Just go into it knowing you're not gonna get the spice that you want, but it has everything else, which I think makes up for it. But yeah, I'm not gonna get into any more. I just really recommend this book. This was my absolute favorite book of the summer, and the book you guys should read this fall. It is a 5-star in my opinion, and I will have it linked down below for you guys to check it out if you want. But that is going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this review of A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting. I'm so excited for Sophie Irwin. This is her debut novel, and I cannot wait to read anything else she comes up with because I loved her writing style. And if you have any other questions about this book or book recommendations, please let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. And until next time, I will see you in my next video. Bye!